Is it just me, or is Jason Jacques becoming your favorite Canadian to watch right now? I think he deserves the Maclean's magazine front cover, don't you? I want to talk today on The Last Word here on your Thursday about something that should chill every Canadian regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum. Because when the Interim Parliamentary Budget Officer, a man whose job is literally to stay calm, stay neutral, and measure the books, starts using words like he used previously, thinking about the word stupefying, for example, but now unmoored and abandoning fiscal anchors. Love it. You'd better believe we are not dealing with ordinary incompetence. We're dealing with something far more dangerous, and Mark Carney can't stand this guy at this point. A government drifting into pure fantasy while hoping Canadians won't read the fine print. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things, the last word for your Thursday. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation. Jason Jacques is not a bomb thrower. He is not a partisan attack dog, yet he is now openly saying what the rest of us have been screaming for months, that the Carney government's spending is really out of control. Its definition of investment is nonsense, and the fiscal anchors that used to keep Canada credible, like the debt-to-GDP ratio, for example, are being tossed aside like yesterday's poutine wrapper. And it would be bad enough if that were the whole story, but here we are in Canada today, right? It gets a lot worse. It actually gets much worse, because Jacques isn't just warning about runaway spending now. He's also warning about a national housing plan so far off track already that calling it a plan at all is now a form of comedy in this country. It should land on This Hour Has 22 Minutes, but we know it won't because that's a CBC program. The Carney Liberals promised 500,000 new homes over 10 years. That's 5 million new homes. A number so big they used it like a campaign jingle back in the campaign. It was the shiny bow on their entire election pitch. The moral justification for every dollar spent. The excuse for every deficit. The reason they said they needed more power, more time, and more of your money. And now, well, our Parliamentary Budget Officer, interim of course, because they want him replaced, says the Build Canada Homes program, the centerpiece of the grand promise from Mark Carney, is on track to produce a whopping 26,000 homes over 5 years. Not 26,000 a year, my friends. Not 26,000 this year. 26,000 total over half a decade. Now, to put that into perspective, the government promised 500,000 a year and is delivering about 5,200 a year by Jason Jacques' numbers. Now, again, both numbers could be wrong, but there's going to be an in-between that's way less than 500,000. You could build more homes by convincing every Canadian who owns a hammer to build a shed in their backyard. You could get more housing units by accidentally approving condo towers you didn't mean to approve. This isn't just a failure upon our government. It is a lie. It's a statistical stunt. It was never ever meant to work out, and it was an insult to each and every one of you. And here's where it becomes viral level ridiculous at this point, because instead of acknowledging this chasm between reality and fantasy, the government has decided to just change the definitions within the writing. They're redefining what counts as an investment, redefining what counts as on track, and redefining what counts as fiscal responsibility. If you can't hit a target, just shrink the target. Change the target altogether. Then accuse critics of misunderstanding the target in the first place. You guys read that all wrong. We didn't mean 500,000 in 10 years. We meant 100 years. Classic Ottawa, classic Liberal. Jason Jacques didn't fall for any of it, of course, and he went to committee to talk about it. He came right out and said the quiet part out loud, which is that the fiscal anchors, the debt-to-GDP ratio, balanced budget pathways, guardrails to prevent runaway borrowing have been tossed out by this Liberal government already, thrown in the water and hoping it sinks. They don't exist anymore. Not in practice, anyway. Fiscal anchors are the seatbelt of federal budgeting. When a government ignores them, it's the equivalent of getting into a car drunk, disabling the airbags, and then bragging about how fast the car can go. It's ridiculous, it's illegal, it's insane, and we're all not supposed to do it. This is where it becomes genuinely dangerous altogether, because history is littered with governments that lost discipline, lost credibility, and then lost control. You don't need to go back to Greece or Argentina to find any of this. Look at the UK bond crisis in 2022. Look at the 1990s fiscal meltdown right here in Canada. Look at the US debt brinkmanship every few years. Credibility matters. It matters. And once it's lost, it takes a decade to rebuild it. Now, Mark Carney, the supposed global financial guru, knows all of this. He knew all of this before he was elected. He spent 15 years lecturing world leaders about fiscal prudence. He gave speeches titled Anchored in Stability, for example. He wrote articles about the dangers of governments ignoring fundamentals. And yet here he is, now as our Prime Minister, presiding over a budget that his own Parliamentary Budget Officer can't even defend on mathematical grounds. And now it's getting words like stupefying and unmooring and worse words than that. Even Scott Aitchison, the Conservatives' housing critic, a guy who has traveled this country talking to builders and municipalities and trades and planners and families, said it straight out. The Build Canada Homes Plan is not only unnecessary, it's making things worse in this country and not better. And he's right, because the government has spent so much time announcing programs, renaming programs, and re-announcing the renamed programs that builders don't even know what is real anymore, where to apply, what they're applying for, or any of the language surrounding it. Provinces don't know what will actually be funded. Municipalities have no clue what paperwork is coming next. And tradespeople, well, they know there aren't enough of them to build 5 million homes in 10 years, even if every other obstacle was magically reduced or vanished entirely. The CMHC projections tell the real story here. Housing starts are going down, not up. Down from 245,000 in 2024 to less than 238,000 this year, dropping again next year, dropping again in 2027. We're not even keeping pace with population growth, much less solving the crisis for housing itself. And yet the Carney government insists that everything is just fine. Just ignore it. Our promises will come true. That magic fairy dust will hit the promise and away it will go. That the plan is working. That Canada is building homes at a record pace. So shut up and just listen. Now, we're not going to do that. There's too big of a size of a gap between promises and outcomes here, Liberals. We can't do that anymore. This is why Canadians are losing trust. You cannot tell people who are paying $2,500 for a one-bedroom apartment that things are improving when every credible expert says that they're not improving. You cannot tell millennials to be patient when the math clearly shows they will be senior citizens before the housing supply stabilizes. You cannot claim that your fiscal anchors are intact when the PBO is openly saying that they've been completely abandoned. The only way any of this works is if the "you will own nothing" phrase actually comes true, because they're certainly not helping home ownership. And here's the part that may really go crazy here. This is not accidental. This is probably the design. This government has decided that promising big is more important than delivering small. And announcements matter more than outcomes. Numbers matter more than homes. Optics matter more than reality. This is where we're getting to in Canada. That's why Mark Carney keeps posing at housing construction sites built as props instead of actual sites that are being built currently. That's why they keep inflating estimates and downplaying consequences. That's why every investment is whatever they choose to call it this week. That's why it keeps getting renamed. The more you rename it, the more you can't find the program that's supposed to be in place today. And Jason Jacques is calling it all out. He has now joined a long line of experts, economists, analysts, municipal leaders, former central bankers, former finance officials, who are warning that Canada's fiscal credibility is completely eroding across the world. They're saying the math doesn't work and people are noticing. They're saying the assumptions are very wrong, especially in the budget. They're saying the government's plan is fantasy. Well, you can't keep operating that way and have credibility around the world. And the government's response to any of this? Well, guess what they do? They smile, they smirk, they get angry, they tell you who cares, they wave, and schedule another press conference with another backdrop of another housing development that won't be built in the future. So we're asking one simple thing here. Canadians really need to wake up, because this is not a left-right issue. This is a do I have a place to live issue. This is not a partisan issue. This is a national competence issue, a credibility issue, a future of your own children or grandchildren issue. A country that abandons fiscal anchors cannot steer their ship any longer. And a country that cannot build enough homes for its people cannot grow, cannot thrive, and cannot recover. We are running out of time to correct course in Canada. But the first step is honesty. That's all we need. It's a simple step, but it's one the Liberals often don't want to follow. And Jason Jacques, bless him as he is, finally gave his own honesty that Ottawa refuses to acknowledge. The question is, will Canadians listen to what he's saying? Because the warning signs are ringing. The warning bells, the sirens are ringing. And this time, they're not coming from YouTubers or opposition MPs or frustrated mayors. They're coming from the federal budget watchdog himself. The one Mark Carney has posted the job a couple of times now to try and replace. He doesn't like this pushback. The reality is, Mark, ignore this at your own peril. Thanks for watching Bakes on Things, the last word for your Thursday. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course join the conversation down below. Would love to hear your opinion on this. How are we going to wake up this Liberal government to some of these issues that are clearly just continuing to reveal themselves, not just from the PBO, but through other things as well, just falsehoods, fake buildings behind Mark Carney, useless press conferences, and of course the renaming of these programs. How do we get around all of that? Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we'll catch you tomorrow morning on The First Sip.